Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 21, Text 23. Shri Bhagavan Uvacho Viditva Tavo Chaityam Me Puraiva Samayoti Tat Yad Atam Atma Niyamai Swayavaham Samachitam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacho Viditva Tava Chaityam Me Viditva Tava Chaityam Me Puraiva Samayojitat Puraiva Samayojitat Yadartam Atmaniyamai Yadartam Atmaniyamai Tvayayvaham Samarchitam Tvayayvaham Samarchito. Shri Bhagavan Uvacho Viditva Tava Chaityam Me Puraiva Samayojitat Yadartam Atmaniyamai Tvayayvaham Samarchito. Translation. The Supreme Lord said, Having come to know what was in your mind, I have already arranged for that for which you have worshipped me well through your mental and sensory discipline. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Param Atma feature is situated in everyone's heart. He knows, therefore, the past, present, and future of every individual person, as well as his desires, activities, and everything about him. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that he is seated in the heart as a witness. The personality of Godhead knew the heart's desire of Kardama Muni, and he had already arranged for the fulfillment of his desires. He never disappoints a sincere devotee, regardless of what he wants, but he never allows anything which will be detrimental to the individual's devotional service. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Viditva Tava Chaityam Me Puraiva Samayojitat Yadartam Atmaniyamais Tvayayvaham Samarchito. The Supreme Lord said, having come to know what was in your mind, I have already arranged for that for which you have worshipped me well through your mental and sensory discipline. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead knows well what is in the heart of the conditioned souls. Not only the conditioned souls, but all the souls. He knows all living entities. It is stated, Vedaham samatitani vatmanani tavacharjana bhavyashami chabhutani mam tu vedana kastina. He says, I know everything that has happened in the past. I know everything that is happening right now. And I know everything that will happen in the future. And I know all living entities. That means he knows the past, present, and future of everyone. There is nothing which is not known to Krishna. Krishna knows everything about everything. He's full of all knowledge. All knowledge in the quantity, unlimited quantity of knowledge. We may also be full of knowledge to a certain extent, But our knowledge is limited in quantity. It is very small. Whereas Krishna's knowledge is unlimited in quantity. Krishna knows everything about everything. We may know everything about something, or something about so many things. But only Krishna, he knows everything about everything. Nobody can even come close to Krishna in knowledge. Even Lord Brahma, who is the great controller in this material world, being that he is the creator of it, in this universe, he doesn't know about other universes. To him, these other universes didn't even exist until Krishna explained to him, when once Lord Brahma came to visit him in Dwarka, that there were many other Brahmas in other universes too, and Krishna called a lot of them to come before him, and they all appeared before him with their different opulences, offering obeisances to the Lord, and none of them knew that the others were there. In this way, Lord Brahma could understand that his knowledge is very limited because he may only know one universe, but there are many universes, millions of universes, and Krishna knows all of them. He is the supreme controller in all of them. So Krishna knows the past, present, and future of all living entities. But nobody knows Krishna. Nobody knows does not mean that Krishna is a grand mystery and nobody can know him. It simply means that nobody knows Krishna in full. Because after all, if Krishna knows everything and we can only know something, how can we know Krishna? To know Krishna fully means you would also know what he knows. But you cannot know what he knows because he knows everything and we know only a very small amount. Therefore, being that we are limited and he is unlimited, the limited cannot know the unlimited, therefore we cannot know Krishna. But we can know Krishna to some extent. Certainly we can know Krishna. After all, that is what the whole Krishna consciousness movement is all about. Knowing Krishna. Coming to know Krishna. Certainly you can know Krishna to a large extent. And from our relative point of view, we are relative truth. Krishna, he's absolute truth. We are related to Krishna, so we are relative truth. So we can come to know Krishna in our own relative way to whatever maximal degree is possible for us who are limited. In that way we may know him. We may know Krishna according to our relationship with Krishna. Our relationship to Krishna is one of the 5 eternal rasas with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, those who are actually serving Krishna would never consider the Shanta Ras. However, there are 5 rasas, 4 of which a Vaishnava would be interested in. And one may know Krishna to that degree. He would need to know Krishna in order to maintain his relationship with him in one of these relationships. Just like if one is related to Krishna as a friend, he will know Krishna in a different way as those who are related to him as parent. Those who are related to Krishna as friend, their knowledge will be specifically concentrated on the form of Krishna as that cowherd boy in the forest of Vrindavan who is dancing and singing, along with them who they see as their equal, but who they all see as their best friend and most worshipable personality. However, the parent of Krishna will see Krishna in another way, not as equal, but as one who is to be protected, as an inferior is to be protected by the superior. And therefore, in such protective environment, the vision of the devotee in the Vatsalya rasa of parenthood, and the vision of the devotee in the Shakya rasa of friendship is different, and their knowledge of Krishna is also different according to their relative positions. So this is the law of spiritual relativity. Everybody sees Krishna in a different way according to their different relationship. And according to that relationship, they may know Krishna to that degree or not. You may know Krishna to that degree that Krishna allows you to know him. Krishna may allow you to know him to some degree. Then you may know him in that way. Actually, you cannot know Krishna by all various means of na labhya pravachanena labhyo na medaya na bahuna shutena, just simply good scholarship or good intelligence or even grand preaching. But one will know Krishna to the degree that Krishna himself wishes us to know him. Krishna wishes you to know him, you will know him. If Krishna does not wish you to know him, you will not know him. To whatever degree Krishna allows you to know him, you can know him. Of course, Krishna will be inclined to allow you to know him according to the love which the devotee manifests towards Krishna. It is not a question of business, so much love, so much knowledge. It is a question of love. Of course, you can break down everything into business if you have that kind of vision. But it is a question of love. In that loving relationship between the Lord and his devotee, Krishna is inclined to the devotee to the degree that the devotee is inclined to him. In fact, Krishna is much more inclined to the devotee than the devotee is inclined to him. If the devotee is inclined to Krishna, but he may not be fully able to manifest that, but Krishna will give him so much more mercy than should be normally given by the ordinary business sense. Business sense would say, you gave so much, I give so much, that's all. So that there's no loss. But Krishna will come so much closer to that soul who tries to love him. Because Krishna is also well aware of the difficult condition and situation the living entity has to face in this material world. He knows that every living entity has a material body, and with the material body come material troubles. He knows. Krishna knows very well what troubles and struggles there are. Therefore, when someone, despite the fact that there are so many problems in the material world, still tries very hard to surrender unto his lotus feet, Krishna becomes very inclined to that person and helps him in all kinds of nice ways, despite the fact. Therefore, Krishna says, how much greater are those who, despite living in this miserable material world, are continuously striving for righteousness, that which will bring one to following the path of Krishna consciousness. So there are many difficult things in the material world, there's no doubt, because this material world is a place of suffering. But those who try hard, despite all that suffering, and try to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, more and more, such persons are very much blessed by Krishna. Now, what does the blessing mean? Again, a business-minded type of person may say, the blessing means you get some material benediction. Some persons, and we all have experience of this, they will worship Krishna only so much as they get something out of it. If they get something out of it, then they worship. If they don't get anything out of it, they quit. If you get opulence, position, happiness, whatever you want, then you think that this worship of the Supreme is all right. But if one doesn't get these things, then one thinks, what's the use? I can get the same suffering I get now, I can get it without worshiping God. And then I don't have to spend so much time. They think like that. Many think like that. In fact, the majority of people on the planet think like that. They think that better you simply use your time to get material results. Sometimes we also see former devotees of this movement. They think in a very strange way. They think that I have spent much time serving Krishna consciousness. Had I worked for a living during that period of time, then I would have had so much money. And now I don't have so much money because I spent all that time in Krishna consciousness. And when I left, they didn't give me a salary either. There are persons who think like this. They think that their time is money, or they think that the amount of labor you perform should be translated directly into some kind of tangible, fruitive result. Therefore, they're nonsense, number one. Those who come to Krishna consciousness movement should only come for one reason and one reason only, which is to become purified of the contaminated conditions of this material world and render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when attracting Krishna, becoming inclined towards Krishna, Krishna will give one his mercy so that one may know Krishna and go back home, back to him. Going back home, back to Godhead is, after all, the entire purpose of our whole lives. Therefore, when we serve Krishna in the Krishna consciousness movement, it is simply meant for satisfying Krishna, satisfying him, and bringing ourselves closer and closer to him in loving devotion. This is Krishna consciousness. So, it is not something which is very easy, but it is not something which is very difficult either. It is something which you can do if you want. If one wants, he can serve Krishna. Just like sometimes one wakes up in the morning and he doesn't have any desire to serve Krishna, and everything he does that day is a total failure. Spaced out the whole day, useless. Neophyte devotee will think like that. Neophyte, if the mind says, let's not serve Krishna today, the neophyte will say, yeah, that's not a bad idea. If one is a little advanced, if the mind says, let's not serve Krishna today, the devotee says, what is this nonsense mind? And he beats it very severely with a broomstick. Yeah. He kicks out this thought and forces the body and mind to render service to Krishna despite the mind saying, no, there are better things to do. So, this is a symptom of a little advancement, where one doesn't have to be pushed to render service to Krishna. He can see by his own intelligence what should be done. Everybody can see. After all, it's obvious. Just like now we have so many activities which are, of course, nice in a sense because they, even for a fruitively minded person, they are very obvious. We have to finish a temple room and a kitchen and move a kitchen and get the whole thing together. So, for a fruitive-minded person, it's very easy to relate to this because there is a date. A date is fixed. There is a raging need, since the place will be packed with people, and there is a room which is underway. So, for a fruitively minded person, any fool can see 1 and 1 is 2. Room not finished, people's coming, date is fixed, therefore work like mad. So it's very good to have projects like this, with fixed dates. That forces one to surrender. And when the mind says, no, I don't want, but the intelligence should simply have to see and say, seems impossible. Double speed. Otherwise, no accomplishment. Similarly, if one is working on the press and he sees piles of books in unbound form, sitting around everywhere and piling up more and more, then he should think, piles of books, not finished, conditioned souls, in Maya, work like mad, double speed. This is just logical. I mean, from the point of view of those who have even fruitive mentality, it is very easy to understand. For those who have spiritual mentality, they think, life is wasting, minutes are going, death is coming, work like mad, go back to Godhead. That, of course, is not a fruitive activity. Of course, it brings a result, there's no doubt about it, but that's not fruitive. Fruitive means it brings a result which I will enjoy in the material world. And spiritual means it brings a result which Krishna will enjoy. So all our activities are meant for satisfying Krishna so that he will be very happy with what we are doing. And when Krishna is satisfied, he knows what's in the heart of every living entity. He knows that the living entities have their own desires too. He knows everybody has something he desires. He wants this or he wants that. He knows. So therefore, Krishna, he satisfies the desires of the living entity, but not in such a way that the living entity will diminish or it will become an obstacle in his service. After all, everybody has so many desires. Some of them are useful for surrendering to Krishna. Some of them are completely useless for surrendering to Krishna. In fact, worse, they're damaging. Krishna will not satisfy those desires. Krishna will, of course, he says, Prabhupada says right here, he never disappoints a sincere devotee, regardless of what he wants. But he never allows anything which will be detrimental to the individual's devotional service. Krishna will give you what you want, but not if it is going to harm your devotional service. He will only give that to you which will increase service and make purification. Now sometimes neophytes become agitated. They think, what is this? I never get my sense gratification. Everybody else, they get their sense gratification. But I don't get my sense gratification. Therefore, Krishna is preventing me from sense gratification. Therefore, I should go away and just simply get the sense gratification somewhere else, because, after all, you don't get it here because it's cruel, 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 harsh, horrible, terrible, austere. And thus one thinks, why surrender to Krishna? Better to run around in the material world and get all kinds of sense gratification. If you just stay here, Krishna will always keep you in suffering conditions. Anyway, fools can think whatever they like, and they generally do too. You don't have to invite them. But in fact, we have to understand that Krishna is not going to let us do that which is going to harm us. Just like the parent is not going to let the child jump off the roof just because the child wants to jump off the roof. He's going to say, fool, when you jump off roof, you crack into 10 pieces and die. And makes a mess, splat. So you don't do things like this. So, therefore, we know perfectly well Krishna is the greatest, most protective of all. He will only allow his devotee facility for that which will help the devotee to surrender. He will not allow the devotee facility for that which will cause the devotee to again have more desires, to again be suffering in more conditions of life, to again be disturbed. Krishna will not allow the devotee to have to undergo repeated birth and death. Krishna will only allow the devotee to come to his lotus feet. Therefore, he arranges things. Sometimes Krishna takes everything away from a sincere soul. When a sincere soul who wants to surrender to Krishna somehow gets entangled in material things, Krishna arranges it so that he gets himself out of it. But if one is too much entangled, then sometimes Krishna blesses that person by just taking away everything and leaving him with nothing except his lotus feet. So that is also all right. Anything which ends up with Krishna is okay, even if it seems temporarily to be a little bit of a struggle. But we have to live with that. It's not that everything will be perfect all the time in this world. In fact, mainly it will not be perfect. Mainly it will be pretty nasty. In this world, things will be nasty. That's the nature of this world. It goes from bad to worse. This is Kali Yuga. Formerly, things were nice. Satya Yuga. Maybe somewhere in Treta Yuga and Dwarpa Yuga. In heavenly planets, things were always nice. But that niceness is not very useful because it keeps one attached. When everything's very nice, one becomes extremely attached. If something is not very nice, that's good because it forces one to surrender. One will have to surrender when one sees that in this material world, things are not very nice. So forced surrender is better than no surrender. So one should not think badly about being forced to surrender in this world. One should think that's Krishna's mercy. Because forced surrender is better than no surrender. In the material world, people are thinking no surrender is better than forced surrender. But we have just the opposite understanding. We should surrender. So, that is the question. How to surrender? So the answer is either by good intelligence, by good direction from spiritual master, or if you're still a fool, by club on head. Whatever process works, take it. Maybe there's one or two questions. Yes? Kali Yuga on the heavenly planets, as far as I have heard, is like a cloud in the sky. Well, we can speculate all kinds of things. But why Krishna does what Krishna does is up to Krishna. Why? Sometimes Krishna takes away from us things because they weren't exactly right on, or they weren't exactly going to benefit us ultimately, or wasn't going to benefit his plan ultimately. Therefore, things are taken away in order that we have to either do them again in the right way, or do them again in a better way, or learn something more with it. There's so many reasons. One just has to understand ultimately which one. Far be it from me to speculate on the causes of any particular individual action. Although people are very much eager to do that. Whenever something happens to somebody, immediately they point their finger and say, oh, that's because of this. 5 different people will have 5 different reasons why it happened. And in fact, none of them understand. Why something happens as it happens, you cannot know. Just like we find in the Mahabharata, so many things happened, which were much more terrible than simply losing a couple of films in a burning house. Some people lost lives in burning houses. But nobody could really understand why it was so until somebody explained why it was so. Like some great sage came, or demigod came and said, this happened because of this and this and this reason. Then all of a sudden, oh, my goodness, yes. Like nobody could understand, for instance, Karna. Why he didn't kill the other 4 Pandavas on the battlefield. Why his wheel was stuck in the mud at the end of the battle, towards the end of the battle, and why he couldn't move anymore. Nobody understood these things. Karna could have killed Bhima, Yudhisthira, Nakula and Sahadev without any problem. They were unarmed right before him, he could have just finished them. And he didn't do it, he just hit them on the head with his bow and said, go away, little boy. Don't fight with those who are your superiors. Nobody understood this. They didn't understand. Why? Because he was so nasty otherwise. But later on it was revealed because he was their brother. And he knew it, no one else. So then they were all very much disturbed. And it's a whole very difficult scene. But the point is that why things are how they are arranged, nobody can know. Even though everybody may proclaim to know, nobody knows. In fact, only Krishna knows, or one who knows what Krishna knows. And maybe something is revealed, answer, maybe not. My general rule of thumb is just wait, and in due course of time, that which is necessary to be explained gets explained somehow or another. Why something happens gets explained later on, little by little. That's my answer. Yeah, but you're a householder. That means association with women. But still, that means you just only associate for the sake of service, that's all. Whatever is necessary for service, then you can do. Otherwise, not. If you sit around all day drinking buttermilk and making jokes together, then you know you got a problem there. Wait a minute, before you start speculating. His son is Kapila Muni. So those who are parents of the Supreme Personality of Godhead always perform such austerities. Because in order to have the Lord as your son, you have to have a son. To get a son, you need a wife. So their desires in this regard are not material. Yes, if you start praying like that, then it's material, yes. You're neither Kardama Muni nor Devahuti.
But if one is given good advice how to solve certain problem, and then he simply says, "Oh, but I'm not good devotee, I cannot do it."
Then you get a stick and beat him in the head. Because everybody can say that all the time. Can you please wash the floor? Well, I'm not a pure devotee, I'm not ready for that yet. Can you please chant your rounds? Well, I'm not a pure devotee, I can't do that yet. This is called nonsense. Get a stick, beat. Take stick, apply to head. In rapid motion. All right, Harikesa.